Well, welcome to another episode Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Ryan.
Hey, what's up, Robbie? Thanks for your time. I appreciate you having me.
Ryan, you know what really I don't like about Facebook is the fact I get random friend requests from people I've never seen in my entire life, and then I just let them sit there. I don't know whether to accept it or delete it. Maybe we came across each other in a store and I didn't know your name.
Yeah, that's well, it's the struggles of being famous, Robbie. You're a wanted man.
I wouldn't call myself famous. Maybe I did a crime and I didn't know about it, but it's just weird. How do people find you? I remember this girl had messaged me and sent me a friend request through Facebook, and she just knew me from work, but I never gave her my name. I never had an introduction. And she goes, "Hi, Robbie." I'm like, "How the fuck do you know me?" And I end up finding out that she asked people I work with what my name was and then where I live. And I'm like, why is she asking where I live? I don't want anybody showing up to my house unexpected.
Yeah, I mean, these are the things we deal with. I don't know. That doesn't really happen to me as often, I guess. Maybe it will now that I'm on your podcast. Maybe I'll get
you gotta
get
fans,
recognized.
Dude. You gotta have fans. Come on.
Just my mom,
A handsome man like yourself, you're telling me you don't have a couple of stalkers in the wings.
It's all in the lighting, Rob. It's all in the lighting.
Well, Ryan, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, man?
I'm down here in Florida, in Tampa, and I work in video production, mostly in television, working for networks like ESPN and stuff like that. And I also started a podcast with my close friend, Jason Peters, and we co-hosted together. It's a film discussion podcast. And we just started it like everybody else in this world. We started a podcast. You're either going to make sourdough bread or start a podcast in this quarantine that we're up against right now. So I opted for the podcast because I already had the equipment, and learning how to do a starter batch of yeast just didn't seem like my cup of tea. So we discuss films, and we try to bring a new level of energy to being nerds. And we kind of run it like a comedy sketch show or even a morning radio show, and kind of bring that energy to it. But yeah, it just started as a labor of love. It was something Jason and I were doing anyways, just calling each other out of boredom and talking about movies. And so, the age old thing, well, someone should record this. And we did. And we got some traction, and it kind of took off a little bit, and it's been pretty successful for us. So we're just having fun with it.
You said podcasting or sourdough bread. So if you don't understand the fermentation process, you might as well dive into podcasting. Am I right?
I guess. Yeah, that's what we did. That's something I was much more familiar with.
Why did you guys decide you wanted to talk about film? I know you kind of deal with ESPN and workings in it, but what's your fascination with, I got talking to Jason for a long while about the whole industry in general, but more the thoughts of movies too. It kind of changes a lot, and you see a lot of movies everyone's so hyped up for, everybody's hyped up for the TV show The Mandalorian season 3 when it comes out next year. It's a fucking year away. Why is everyone so hyped up for it? And then Wonder Woman 84 came out. I have seen nothing but bad reviews on it where I'm like, did you just hype up your hope too much? Is that what you did?
Yeah, I mean, we've had some fun hyping up movies. We've had some greater fun tearing down movies. Sometimes that makes for a better show, I think. Sometimes is just, how did they get away with this, or what the heck were they thinking? It's funny. Some movies you watch and you think it would make for a good program. You listen to the podcast or whatever, and you realize, the good movies are actually kind of boring to talk about, because it's that was good. I like that. But when you could really dissect the film and break it down and kind of get into the travails of filmmaking and what were they thinking and stuff. And we like to take a deep dive into some off the beaten path films, whether it's the first films by famous directors or little off the beaten path films by famous directors, or a big indie film by a not so well-known director. And it's kind of how did that happen? And but as far as expectations go, I try not to have any. It's a lot of these films that we have on our list that we talk about, that we cover, are films that Jason and I have wanted to watch and just never got around to or haven't seen in many years. These are oftentimes older films or classic films. So We don't really cover the Wonder Woman 84s of the world. We leave that to Twitter.
That's
There's
like,
enough people talking about those already.
you start to come across that some of those independent films that you've never even really heard of, you end up discovering 10 years after they're created, are sometimes better than the ones that are always in the limelight. Like, it makes me trust when I see a lot of trailers for a movie. I'm just like, is the hype? I think the hype's too much, because sometimes, like, digging up through the past, like if you look at a lot of these horror podcasters or horror community involved people, they're posting up really old Blu-rays or really old like VHS tapes of films and stuff, and the shit's like, whoa. Sam Elliott hunting Bigfoot and also killed Hitler at the same time. Like, what is going on? Like, that's a film. It might not be the best to watch, but you're so fucking intrigued by all those things added up into one.
Yeah. That's been, I think, the most fun of the podcast is just kind of giving myself homework and because there's always, we all have those movies on our list of like, man, I want to see that someday, or you're scrolling through and just looking for something to watch, whether it's on Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever. And you just never really commit to watching these films. So it's been fun to kind of give myself some homework and be able to take notes and do it, not only watch the film, but, kind of do a deep dive and then bounce ideas off my buddy Jason as well, and see how, another film nerd felt about the same movie that we watched at the same time. So, yeah.
Have you ever been
That's Sam Elliott Sasquatch Hitler movie is definitely on my list. That's that's awesome. You brought that up because I'm hoping. Have you seen it?
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's a lot of people.
Is it good? Okay, good.
I wouldn't accept my reviews on movies because every movie I love, people hate. So I just understand that before you go into it. But it's fucking Sam Elliott hunting Bigfoot and also killed Hitler. I mean, come on.
Yeah. That's a winning recipe. Sorry.
That's called
just out of concept alone. Yeah.
That's a cocaine movie. That's a movie where someone was on coke when they were writing it, filming it, and then producing it. But if you look at what do you call it? Damn it, what was that movie called? I was gonna say. I'm trying to look at, like, because movies, like, there's a movie that just came out, or not just came out, it's actually coming out, and it happens to analyze the whole year of 2020 basically for us. It's based on COVID, but it's called COVID 20, and it's like 5 years or 10 years after suffering from the virus, and there's only very few people that are leave their house. Everyone's locked up inside their house. The whole world is practically like an apocalypse wasteland type thing, and I'm like, is this offensive for a lot of people? How many people are going to want to watch this? Because this is a lot of like real shit involved in this movie, but it's very, very dramatized up. Like, if we ever encountered aliens and they made a movie about it, they would be like, fucking, then we had sex with every alien and started a whole species or something. It would be too ridiculous.
I mean, yeah, I'm just waiting in line to fucking Alien. That's what I'm waiting for. So don't knock that till you've tried it. But yeah, that's a little too soon on the COVID 20 thing. I'll probably take a pass on that. I'm living it. I don't need to watch it.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll be one of those retro throwbacks. In 20 years, our kids will watch it and say, wow, is that really what it was like?
Well, it's like, is it, when you're watching, is it going to be like, is this a movie or is this a documentary? Because we don't even know what the thing's going to be like yet. You know what I mean? Like, we're not really seeing an end goal right now. We're kind of see the glimpse of the light, but it seems like it keeps getting covered up. So I'm like,
right.
You don't know if we could be fucking suffer another 2 years of this. You're making a damn movie about it.
Yeah, no, I think that definitely falls under the too soon category. Too soon. Again, but that one's not on our list. We're not going to talk about that. You won't have to worry about hearing about that on our podcast.
Well, what exactly? All right. So what's the movie you're going to talk about on your podcast then?
Well, we've done some really good ones just recently. The Lighthouse came out, and I think that's been our best episode to date as far as listenership. Something I didn't talk about that has been a lot of fun to participate in is, not having sponsors. It's just starting from scratch and not having commercials. We decided that we would perform our own fake commercials and do comedy sketches and base them on the movies that we're discussing that particular week. So The Lighthouse, has a pretty traumatic graphic scene where Robert Pattinson is drunk on turpentine and hallucinating that he has sex with a mermaid. And it's the first time in film history, cinematic history, that I could think of where they graphically show you what sex with a mermaid would be like. And it's pretty mind boggling to wrap your head around, but
top half or bottom half?
all halves. Yeah, no, they show you in graphic detail what mermaid vagina looks like. So you just got to go with it if you're watching that film. But in discussing it, you can't help but uh, take pause and say, what the hell was that about? So the comedy sketch or the film commercial, the commercial or sponsorship in that particular ad I performed as Willem Dafoe in Salty Sea Dog Talk doing like a mermaid strip club called Flippers. And so that, you know, doing these, and then, you know, we did the following week, we did Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, which is known as the first blaxploitation film from 1971, I believe it is. And man, that was a really rough one to watch too. That was a hard 97 minutes of cinematic history to get through. But again,
Why
the
was
whole
it
thing
hard?
kind of plays out.
Why was it
What's
hard?
that?
Why was it hard?
Oh, it's just the movie itself was very jarring. A lot of really rough edits and rough cuts, and it didn't really know what it wanted to be. The message gets lost in a lot of the low production value. But you know, it served its place in history, and it needed to be made. It was blaxploitation was a means that the African American community they kind of had to DIY it to get their message of what they were dealing with in the streets and what their communities were dealing with. You know, now it's on every news station, and you could just scroll through. We've got hundreds of channels of television and news outlets that get this stuff out there, not the least of which is the internet. But back then they didn't have any of these things, obviously. So someone like Melvin Van Peebles, the writer and director of that film, had to take it upon himself to bring that message to the mainstream via blaxploitation films. And it was littered with the exploitation side of blaxploitation. You of course have the African American community representing the black part of that, but then you've got the exploitation side, and that's what makes it hard to watch. Is all the stuff that they have to, or that they try to litter the movie with to make it more enjoyable, I guess. I don't know. There's like weird scenes of the way they use sex in those films is pretty hard to watch. I don't know. It was a rough film. It's not a very well produced film.
Well, there's two definitions of rough. Was it done in a wrong way? Because then you see like The Exorcist. That's a fucking rough one to watch. You know, like it's a very good movie. It's always known as like the classic, but it's fucking rough, dude. When she says that
Right.
your mother's gonna suck cocks in hell, like to her own mom, and I'm like, Jesus, man, like she was fucked up after that movie was filmed. Like she went down a dark path because I don't think you can stick a crucifix in your pussy and end up being an okay actor later in life.
Yeah. I haven't tried it. We'll maybe get there later this year and see what that's like. No, The Exorcist was a well-made movie, but dealt with difficult subject matter and in a very explicit way. A movie like Sweetback's Badass Song is just a very low budget film for starters. The audio was terrible. The film gate for the camera was dirty constantly. So you have the hairs and flickers that you're sometimes that will accompany a low budget film like that. And just the storytelling itself, or the character arc, or the dialogue, none of it was very, very well done. So, but you know, look, it's interesting to go back and you know, dive into some of these films. I could say I've seen it now and experienced it. And again, you know, being able to go back and find some humor in all of that by making these fake commercials and comedy sketches and trying to bring some lighthearted humor and some fun to that has been a cool experience as well.
Have you ever came across a movie that might have been way too graphic for you? Like one that was like, oh, I do not feel comfortable watching this at all. Like Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses was fucking a good movie, but that was a lot for me to be 14 years old watching at a bike shop. Like it was not
Right.
something I would say would be I guess the perfect scenario.
Yeah, probably not the age you should be consuming that level of graphic horror. Yeah, you know, what do they call it? Like horror porn or gore porn or whatever. I'm not really into all of that. When you start digging into like the Hostels or Saws of the world, that's just not my speed. You know, trying to create cringeworthy experiences for the viewer to engage them or bring them into a terrifying situation by close-ups of body parts being dismembered or things like that. Yeah, that's just really not my speed. I've seen them, but cringeworthy. Yeah, that's a hard one. Those are hard ones to get through.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at any type of like classification of movie, whether it's the comedy, an action, or a horror film, horror has one that's easily bankable on, which is the fact of I can just chop somebody's arm off and incorporate gore, and it's a horror film. But sometimes the scary movies that really I feel like are the best are the ones that really don't show all that type of stuff, like The Mist, for instance, or you know,
Right?
I would say Split's kind of a horror movie. It's more like dealing with mental health, I think, is like a crazy issue. But like the fact of you don't need to have everybody's head chopped off or things being slaughtered every minute to make it a horror film. You can make it scary without ever showing the monster. I mean, if you analyze movies back in the day, you would see a werewolf attack, but you would never see the fucking werewolf. It would just be a dude getting clawed and the camera like zoomed up on his face and you just hear him screaming and the animal making noises. Then it would go off. And that scared you. No, you didn't need to see any part of the werewolf.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for years, filmmakers did exactly that with violence, where they would leave it up to the viewer to fill in the blanks, if you will. A director by the name of Sam Peckinpah broke that mold with films like The Wild Bunch, where it was the first time really in cinematic history where you got to see the person getting shot. So before that, you'd have John Wayne, doing the standoff in the middle of the street, and then he'd pull his gun and you'd see him shoot his gun. And then when we cut back to his victim, they were already on the street dead. With The Wild Bunch changed in cinematic history or movies like that, Sam Peckinpah was really the first one to do that, if I'm not mistaken, is show what getting shot looks like and have squibs and have it all violent. It's something that has gone on to inspire filmmakers like Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez and people like that. But now horror has kind of done the same, where again, it was always kind of left for years. It was left more up to the viewer to fill in the blanks. And as horror started to get more schlocky and cheesy, they started to show you more. And I think the first example of that I could think of personally was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original by Tobe Hooper, where, man, that scene, have you seen it? Have you seen the original
Yeah.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre? And I'm thinking of the meat hook scene where Leatherface picks up his victim and hangs him on the meat hook, and he's just left dangling there, helpless. And it's a quiet scene. There's no traumatic music. There's no violence. It's just him wriggling around and the sound of metal chains. And that scene will haunt me for the rest of my life.
Yeah. I think a lot of scenes I look back like old movies I started to rewatch. Like I'm a giant fan of Signs. A lot of people don't like that movie. But I feel like it's really, really intense. And from when I was a kid, I mean, I saw it hundreds and hundreds of times. And then I recently did a podcast with my buddy Chuck, who does like a movie podcast. And he's like, let's talk about Signs and why you love it so much. So I rewatched it. Once you're rewatching it, you pick up on shit you have never seen before that you didn't even notice. Like the part where she goes, there's an alien outside my window. That whole scene I skipped out on when I was a kid. I didn't even pay attention to it. And the next thing you know, you get freaked out because you start to notice like, oh my God, they're showing you glimpses and pieces of this alien, this form, this monster that is supposed to be the whole point of the movie is that these aliens are here. And next thing you know, bam, they're barely showing you any of it, but it's scaring the living crap out of you from watching it.
Do you think you had a different experience knowing you were going into the film? Because you had already seen it before, obviously. So do you think you had a different experience going into the film knowing you were going to be on the hook to talk about it?
I think I might have had a personal bias towards it for sure, but I think what really like I was upset, I think, because I had flaws about that movie too. I didn't like a lot of the stuff that was going on because I think it showed a lot of very, very, very harsh and dramatic scenes. Now that I'm older, I could understand a little bit more. But like one of the most important scenes I feel like they should have really added in the movie, and it gives me goosebumps if I even just talk about it, which was when Joaquin Phoenix, that beautiful man, I will say Joaquin, but there's a deleted
the great French actor.
There's a deleted scene where he's boarding up the house and everything, and they look, and it's not in the movie, but they look up and they see the attic, and the attic door is not bundled and they're on the roof. So there's a deleted scene where he stands up on a chair and he holds the thing up with his hands. And as you see it, the aliens start stomping on the door and the thing at it keeps coming down more and more and more every time. And then there's just a stop and he's holding it up. He goes, Mel Gibson goes, find something, or I'm going to find something to put under the thing. And he goes, hurry up. I don't know how long I can hold this. And he goes, how long do you think? He goes, about 180 seconds, like just a fucking time out of nowhere. And then all you hear is this out of dead silence. They stopped. Yeah, they stopped. Bang. And then you just see his hands like bunch down. And like if there was an alien arm, it could have just grabbed him by the head and brought him in, but didn't. Showed nothing. He pushed it back up. They put a bookcase under there. Then all you hear is bang, bang, bang of him hitting the bookcase, and then a stop, and then another bang. And I'm like, fuck, I had goosebumps because the whole time you're thinking, oh my God, are they going to see the aliens? And it never happened.
Yeah. That's something that I've found is, and that's why I asked you that question is, even the movies that I've watched before, knowing that I'm going to be on the hook to actually talk about them, I'm not just absorbing them as entertainment and letting it wash over me. I'm actually paying attention to those moments that you're talking about. And that's been, one of the favorite parts of doing the podcast with Jason is just taking notes and seeing what's going on, but not only what's happening, but why it's happening and what tools the filmmaker's using to evoke that emotion or try to, get those things out of you, whether it's a jump scare or, graphic showing you something or getting your brain to fill in the gaps like we talked about. So yeah, it's not just that, oh, that was a funny movie. It's why is it funny, or why is it scary, or why did that, affect you in such a way, like you're talking about with that scene from Signs. It's a great example.
Can't that harm the movie though? Because like if you try and analyze like deeper into stuff, sometimes you realize like the ridiculousness of it. Like if you probably tried to analyze any of Adam Sandler's movies, you're gonna be like, all right, this is just kind of stupid, even though he gets a lot of shit, but I really like him. But like if you try and analyze Hubie Halloween, for instance, for like excruciating detail, you're gonna be like, all right, this is just dumb shit, But if you analyze a horror film or something with like a crazy story, like Lady in the Water, for instance, you're gonna be picking up on a lot of stuff that you didn't pick up the first time. Like rewatching a movie over and over again, you start realizing, oh my God, I didn't even see this the first time.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Again, that's been, for better or worse, that's been, one of the fun parts of the show is doing exactly that. Sometimes you're right. Sometimes that ruins a film because a film sometimes is just meant as entertainment and not really meant to be dissected. We just did Seeking a Friend for the End of the World as our year-end episode. That comes out this week. I don't know when this episode's going to air, but yeah. So I thought there would be more meat on the bones for us to talk about in that film, and there wasn't. Like it was a hard film to discuss, and it didn't necessarily make for the best episode. Not to down talk my own podcast, but there's only so much you could pick apart with some films before you're just out of gas, and then it's just Jason and I ranting, to each other for the other 30 minutes to fill time. So not every film is meant for dissection in that way, but
what do you find
you roll
your
with the
go-tos?
punches like you and I are doing right now. You just do the best you can with it.
What are your go-tos when you're picking apart a movie, for instance, or if you're analyzing a movie? What are you looking at? Are you looking at like shaky camera angles? Are you looking, because everyone has their own personal bias. Like for me, I like to look at the actors. I like to see is this an actor that can actually encapsulate me into the story, or is it the story that's really dragging me in? Like Batman to me is Christian Bale, but Ben Affleck is everyone talks about. I'm like, I couldn't get hooked because I didn't believe Ben Affleck to be a Batman.
So what's your question though?
What's your preference when you're analyzing a movie? Like what are you looking for? Are you looking at the acting? Is the acting right? Is the directing right? Is the movie story okay?
Yes.
Can you get with it? What are you analyzing first? All of it?
All of it. Yeah. Really, I think the overarching thing, if I was going to nest that question in an answer, I would say what I kind of retool what I said before. It's I'm feeling a certain way. Why am I feeling a certain way? If I'm bored, why am I bored? If I'm engaged, why am I engaged? If I'm scared, why am I scared? And start to pick apart from there, you could take the next step and start to dissect the filmmaking choices that went into getting you there, to that emotion or that feeling. If it's funny, why is it funny? If it's not funny, why is it not funny? We just did a few episodes ago, a good maybe an example of that would be Booksmart by Olivia Wilde. And Jason and I didn't find it funny. And it got great reviews. It had an all-star cast. But to us, this is almost exactly your point about Christian Bale being Batman and not Ben Affleck. So it took you out of it. To us, Booksmart was just a retelling of movies like Superbad or Can't Hardly Wait or American Pie, things that we grew up with, Jason and I, in the 90s as kids that made us laugh. And then we watched this and it just seems like new packaging, new box, same product. And so it just kind of took us out of it. Also, there was an interesting phenomenon that went on where we realized we kind of outgrew high school films somewhere along the way. Like the challenges that these kids were traversing throughout the movie didn't apply to us. And therefore it wasn't really that funny or we weren't really that engaged because it wasn't made for us. That wasn't our film. And it was too hard really to go back however many years to think about high school and and then there's all the tropes. When you start to watch a lot of movies and consecutively, like we have been for the podcast, you start to realize, when you're just watching a movie every now and then, and it's a casual thing on a Friday night or whatever, make it a blockbuster night. You just kind of let movies wash over you. But when you're watching them, so many, like Jason and I have been, you start to realize how many reused tropes and tools these filmmakers use over and over and over again. It's like, oh, I've seen this one before. So sometimes that does kind of ruin a film experience because maybe a film isn't meant to be dissected like that all the time, but it sure has made for entertainment for us. We've been having a good time for it. And I hope the listeners get a kick out of us, ranting and raving sometimes too.
I feel like with older content, there was just a different statute of let's try and make this last for as long as possible. When now it seems like a lot of movies that are being made are just meant to hurry up and make a quick box office like bump or make a quick buck or something. And it really sucks because now there's this whole era of people are wondering what the world of streaming is going to be like, how people are going to make their dollar from films now that everything's kind of incorporating onto Hulu, Amazon, Netflix, all these different types of platforms.
We're all wondering that. Yeah, that's a huge sea change in what's going on right now. We're seeing it in real time, and directors, filmmakers, producers, are all just as up in the air about it as you and I are right now. So it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. I mean, gosh, you just think about how I used to work at Blockbuster Video when I was a kid. It was such a cool job. I loved it. And then of course we went from that to getting
What's your weirdest experience at Blockbuster? I have to ask. I've had one person on this podcast out of all my episodes work at Blockbuster, and it was the funniest fucking thing.
I don't really remember having a weird experience. I just used it as a tool to get free movies. And, they let you take home 5 at a time and you got access to the new releases a week or two before anybody else did. And you got to hook your friends up here and there and all of that. Of course, there's the stereotypical, complaining about late fees and all of that nonsense that was terrible. But overall, can't say I really had any weird experiences. It was just a fun job to have as a kid. But to go from that and then have all of a sudden now we're getting DVDs sent through the mail with Netflix. I was early on that. I was one of the first members or whatever. I jumped on that right away. And then of course now streaming, and now everybody's streaming, and now everything's kind of shifting towards streaming. I think we'll always have the theater experience, the communal coming together in a theater. It's such a caveman thing, sitting by the campfire, telling stories type of thing, to have that commune and get together as a large group and laugh together, cry together. I think that will always exist in some form. I don't think we're all just going to hunker down in our living rooms. The only exception to that would be if they went full Ready Player One for us and created the oasis that we could all jack in with our VR headsets and share that experience together from home. But outside of that, until that comes around, I think that, movies will come back. I'm really kind of curious to see how they make it through economically. AMC's on the brink of bankruptcy. You start reading the terrible condition a lot of our theaters are in right now financially. Yeah, they've only got, AMC and Regal, some of these major theater chains. We always just expect this stuff to be there, but they've only got so much cash laying around and they're not showing movies and they probably won't until the summer. So we're all kind of crossing our fingers and hoping some of our nicer theaters hang around. It'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out in the next 6 months or so. We're going to see some changes, definitely.
Can't you just take out like a recliner in between each one of the recliners that they have and just make a social distance that way so you're not sitting right beside the person? That means you get your own armrest.
I know. I hope you're right. I really do. I miss going to the theater very, very much. And, but there's, it raises other questions too. Like a lot of these actors have negotiated contracts to work for cheaper and they get points on the back end based on the box office success. So when you all of a sudden shift like Warner Brothers did and say, okay, now we're going to put all these movies onto a streaming platform like Dune and Suicide Squad and all of that. Well, now how do all these actors get paid when they were, working for less on the front in exchange for taking points out of the profit? When the profit goes away and it's just designed as a stock boost for AT&T / HBO, what does that do to our contracts and how do we negotiate? I don't mean to get too boring on you, but yeah, it's definitely a new world that we're living in.
That's fascinating because the whole aspect of like, wondered how like people that are filming these things, like listening to, Rob Lowe talk about, going out and filming. I always talk about Rob Lowe. I fucking love that guy.
Well, he's a cool dude to talk about.
When he's doing filming and stuff, how they have to quarantine, they get the prop people on set first, and then they have to wait, and they have to wait a couple hours, disinfect, do all these quarantine type things, and they get the other people on set, and everybody's at set at different times. I'm like, a lot of these recording nights, like I would listen to a podcast called The Crab Feast, and the most interesting thing about that was it would talk to real people, like actors, comedians, all these things, and you'd hear the dark side, and they would laugh at the dark side behind the times. And one dude was talking about how he was a stunt double that played in the Expendables. He was the villain. And he talked about having you do those fighting scenes at night where you're on a fucking whatever boat that floats on those swamps, those giant boats. And there's just one fucking light that is your light source of, you could barely see on this dark ass boat at night. And he talked about how, you're supposed to act like you're getting fucking punched in the face and then you would fall on the ground. Well, he was going against, what's that dude's name? Oh, he's a famous karate guy. Not Chuck Norris.
Jet Li, Jackie Chan.
No, he's Brazilian, I think. He played
Oh, okay.
He did the commercial where he did a split while two trucks were going.
Oh, Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Jean-Claude Van Damme. He was like, I'm going to hit you, okay? And he goes, yeah, okay. But right before the scene, Jean-Claude Van Damme had smoked like a bowl or something because apparently he's a big weed guy. And he smoked. He goes, I'm going to hit you, okay? He goes, you ready? You ready? And he's supposed to hit, but when he hits, he's supposed to stop his punch so it doesn't actually hit you in the face. Dude fucking clocked him. And he goes, Jean-Claude Van Damme punched me right in the face. And after he did it, I hit the ground. And then he goes, oh, I'm so sorry about that. Are you okay? And he goes to pull my hand back up and act like nothing happened. But he did it 4 times in a row. Eventually, I was about to swing on Jean-Claude Van Damme. And it was like, damn, like I love hearing those encounters and stuff like, but that's not going to happen with how everything's going nowadays with people quarantine and stuff. Like you have to maybe film separate shots. You just film all one scene. You know how they did Eddie Murphy and Norbit. It was just a bunch of overlapping scenes onto one to make it seem like they were all these one people in one room.
Yeah. Did you hear the Tom Cruise breakdown from on set of Mission Impossible recently? Were you privy to that?
When he snapped on a bunch of people?
Yeah. Telling because they were breaking COVID protocol and he reamed them out. It's definitely been tricky. I work on set and I do a lot of audio and just miking people up and things that were so reactionary and just muscle memory for me. Now I've got to take pause and everybody gets designated their own mic now, and just the sterilization on set and protocol that we all have to abide by. Even so much as getting, rapid tests before I go on a lot of the sets that I work on. It's taken some getting used to. Certainly hope we get on the other side of this soon. I know that's a cliche thing to say, but yeah, pretty sick of it. It's made my job and everyone's job is a lot harder. And it is taking away those moments. You're absolutely right. Those you could feel it on set as far as everybody having to rather than being engaging and building those relationships on set, now it's so sterile and everybody's so far apart. I don't know.
Well, imagine being an actor and then trying to play a role, but you're already thinking about the protocols and making sure you don't break one of these things so you don't get in trouble. Like just having all
Right.
those things weighing on your mind. I don't want to see a film and feel like the actor's worried about not following protocol. You know what I mean? Unless it's a movie
Yeah.
like Mission Impossible where you're not supposed to follow the protocol, but
Ghost Protocol. Yeah, you bring up an interesting point, because then you start to think about, I don't know how much you know about method acting, but these are actors that don't break character and that live in that moment, like Heath Ledger as Joker, like you mentioned earlier in The Dark Knight. These are people that, or even Jim Carrey as Andy Kaufman in Man on the Moon. These are actors that live in that character that they are letting take over their body and mind, for lack of a better description. And so how does COVID impact someone that's trying to live as the Joker or Andy Kaufman or, someone like Daniel Day-Lewis or someone like that, that is just giving their all to this performance. And now they got to think about masks and all these things that their character wouldn't be thinking about. So why would they be thinking about that? I could only see that as a detriment to that craft. I don't know.
strange times we're living in.
Yeah, man. I'm hoping that it's over soon. I'll be the first in line to get that vaccine as soon as it's available to me. I'm over it.
Oh, here's where I stand. Ready? Okay, so
Yeah, lay it on me.
I had a theory for a long time as a joke saying that I would wait 6 months if there was a vaccine because of I Am Legend. Just saying. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Bring it though. I don't care. Whatever, man. Chip me, pump me full of whatever. Let's just get this over with. If you're telling me, I got vaccinated for everything else when I was like at measles, mumps, rubella. You have to present the paperwork to get into school when you're a kid and whatnot. So I'm over it. Like, let's just do this. Stab me. I want to get on a plane.
I get it. I just don't want a world.
What part of the country are you in? I don't. I know you're Facebook fans. You don't want to give your address. They'll show up at your house. You got this fan follow.
I don't. But I'm in Baltimore, Maryland. Well, Ocean City,
okay.
I'd say.
How's it been up there? You guys locked down, or everything pretty open up there, or how you been getting through?
Usually when you hear about this, you hear about like why someone thinks the way they think about the lockdown scenario. I live in a beach town, and our town locked down during like the beginning, or like kind of like the end of winter, but the beginning of summer. And then we opened up all the way towards the end of summer. So then we had a lot of businesses that ended up closing permanently. And I had known business owners that had basically killed themselves because of the fact that they've lost their whole life's work. And it's been a big shift, but we have regulations. Like I work at a gym, and that's like a cesspool in anybody's mind to think where coronavirus would be. But at this point, everyone's like, if we get it, we get it. And if the people that want to stay home, they should have the right to stay home. But you can't stop people from going and trying to keep their livelihood alive. And that's where I fight the point of like, yeah, I get it. We need to quarantine. We need to stay safe. But at the same time, not everybody has the ability to work from home. Not everybody has the ability to just let their business dry up and all this type of stuff. And they would like to at least fight for their livelihood.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm glad you're doing okay. The gym's been open though. You're able to go to work
every day, sadly.
Sadly. Got it.
You really realize how close people become though, because just this past Christmas, like it's my first year working here, but I had like 8 different Christmas cards that were given to me that were like, thank you for everything that you do. And I'm like, yo, like, you fucking scare me. Like the people that give me cards, like one dude that gave me a card is like, thank you for always being here. And I'm like, yo, I've seen your dick I don't know how many times in the shower, because it's just naked old people in the shower. I don't know why they're always there. Why do you take a shower at a gym? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I've never once taken a shower at a gym. I'm not that guy. So you haven't seen my dick.
It's just not like the one encounter I had that I'm like, they should make a movie about this place, is that I was sitting there trying to go to the bathroom, and a dad was ordering Chinese food on the phone while a naked old guy was toweling off behind him. And his 17-year-old son was like, make sure you get lo mein noodles. I'm like, what is happening? What is happening? Like, I'm just like screaming. Like I can't even go. You can't go to the bathroom when that happens. You're just like, I need to get out of here. I'm in a weird scenario.
No, that's a complete 180. makes you wonder what about that old man's dick made that kid think about lo mein noodles. What was the connection there?
I just remember when someone said, "Hey, Paul, the water is out of hot water." He goes, "Just like the war," and then went into the bathroom. I'm like, "Whoa, what the fuck just happened?"
Jeez, that took a dark turn.
Yeah, it's like, but it's like, it's amazing because you get to see how like connected some people have gotten with the fact of how everything has been so serious. And like, I asked everybody like today and yesterday and the past couple of days, what is your New Year's resolution? What are you trying to stick with? He's like, I'm hoping I can do this every day, go to the gym, but at the same time, I'm just, I'm happy that, I'm here and I'm happy to be, out and living right now. And I'm like, I see now everybody has a new grasp on life. Like a new resolution is like, don't take shit for granted. Like, don't let all those things that we've been taking for granted for so long until this COVID thing happened. It was a great insight into you need to wake the fuck up because you're might not be doing something you want to do.
Yeah, definitely. I think that uh, it's almost once every 10 to 20 years we get an event like that that kind of rattles our cages a little bit and wakes us up. I remember 9/11 happening, and same type thing. A major catastrophe like that, or COVID or whatever. This is going to be the happiest episode you've ever recorded, by the way. We're just talking about all this negative, sad shit.
Here's the funny thing is, every episode I've been recording recently, especially because it seems like we're about to either head into another one or about to be out of a lockdown, everyone's talking about this. So a lot of my episodes recently are talking about shit like this because that's the part that it is. It's real and it's on everybody's mind because we don't know what the fuck's going to happen. That's why that movie scared me so much.
Right. But yeah, it's events like this definitely bring out the best and worst in people. And so it holds a mirror up to your soul or your subconscious in a way, and kind of shows people for who they really are. Like we could all put on the makeup, we could all layer our personalities and protect who we really are with all this facade that we create. But when you have a COVID, when you have a 9/11, when you have a Vietnam War draft or whatever it may be, it strips all that away and you're left there buck naked, and there's no hiding how you responded or what you did in that moment or how you treated people. And it also kind of holds a mirror up to yourself so you could take stock and learn what it is you appreciate. I mean, just from a social standpoint alone, the things that we're missing now all hold up in our houses and whatnot. We talked about movies, but also, concerts and family gatherings and all the things that we're all looking forward to getting back to. I just, the shame to me is that dwindles, that feeling fades. And so we'll be back to taking it all for granted soon. I promise you.
Yeah. Hopefully some people can try and hold on to a little bit of it. But like I said, give it 2 weeks. It's just like a terroristic attack that happens. Once 2 weeks is up, there's this lull of like, I love everybody, I want to be your friend. But we saw once the pandemic, we're about a month and a half in, people stopped really caring about giving groceries to the elderly. It kind of came to this whole other point. It's like, just learn from the mistakes and try and realize that like we're all people trying to survive at the same time. We all fucking love movies. We all love smoking crack. Let's just be doing it together.
Right. Yeah, that's fine. We should smoke crack together, Robbie. I think that'd be a lot of
a great bonding
really bonding moment. It's a new podcast. Let's start a new podcast. The Crack Smokers. It'd be fun.
That sounds like an awesome band.
I mean, I'm sure people would watch. We'd have viewer. I mean, we might get arrested, but it would be a good run.
I don't know if we get any advertisements though, but look, Ryan.
No, but I can make us fake commercials all cracked up. It'll be great. I've got a ton of experience.
I totally forgot you do that. That's funny. Yeah.
No sponsors needed. Just crack.
Lots of it. Send it in the mail. Send it in the mail.
Yeah, why not?
Ryan.
What do we got to lose? We're quarantined anyway.
Please promote where people can find your podcast at, where all your links, Instagram, Twitter, everything, social media, everywhere where they can find you.
Yeah. Okay. So start with Esoterica Cinema. That's mine and Jason's podcast. Definitely go give that a listen. Also, you could find us on Twitter at Esoterica Cinema. You could find us on Instagram at Esoterica Cinema. And I'm Ryan Seybold. So you could find me on Instagram at Ryan_Seybold or on Twitter at the Ryan Seybold. So definitely go give us a listen. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you, Robbie. And I'm going to go smoke some crack.
I'm going to make sure I link it all in the description. And thank you for listening to this episode Out of the Blank podcast.